Howdy, folks. Before we jump into this episode, many of you have reached out to us offering compliments and encouragement, telling us how much you enjoyed the interviews. We estimate over 100 people have tuned in so far. That's over 500 plays in just 2 weeks. We are deeply humbled by this, and we are ready to give you more. So, here you go. In this episode, Michelle and I get into why we started Studio Stillwater and where we think it might go. We hope you enjoy. How did we get here?
For me, I can speak for me. I've been kicking this around for a while, thinking about doing something. And then, honestly, one day on Facebook, I saw someone asking if there were any local podcasts that focus on Stillwater. And I've been thinking about doing one, but I'm having trouble coming up with a good name. And I threw it out there.
Because all you need is a good name, right?
Well, no, that was my stumbling block. That was my excuse for not doing it. It's sort of like when I was in high school and I would put off writing an essay because I couldn't come up with the perfect thesis statement. And, it's just a way of, I think, through anxiety, avoiding doing something that you're nervous about, right?
Yeah.
So I was hyper-focused on coming up with the perfect name. Seemed like all the good names were taken. I actually considered doing a podcast called All the Good Names Were Taken. Who knows? Maybe that'll still appear someday. But anyway, threw that out there and people actually responded. And I thought, oh, crap, now I actually have to do it.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm here. What about you, Chris?
Well, I've had similar stumbling blocks. I've been in the background of recording podcasts that have happened here locally. Nothing that really, kind of stuck around or maybe had that big of a vision. But I always loved hearing people's stories.
Yeah. People are amazing, aren't they?
In their own words. It's kind of like, if every once in a while you go to Finnegan's and maybe meet somebody new and you hear about their story and you're like, wow, that's amazing. I wish more people could hear about that. And then I've been listening to podcasts for like 15 years. When the podcasts, most of them are all like tech related, much more nerdy, geeky stuff, just like Twitter was before.
You're an early adopter, aren't you?
Yes. And I was like, oh man, all these conversations would be so good as a podcast.
Yes, absolutely. It all starts with communication. And I think that's one thing that attracted me to the idea of podcasting. In my day job, I'm the city editor for the Stillwater News Press. I cover city government. We have a wonderful, wonderful correspondent who is covering county government for us now. And I was thrilled to hand that off because we have so many other things to look at now. Staffing's down a little bit, as it is everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing more with fewer people. And that frees me up to help out on the school beat and to focus a little bit more on business and obviously health. In terms of the COVID-19 pandemic has been a big, big story this year and something that requires almost constant attention. There's, some other thing to be reported almost every day. But anyway, as through my job, and I've been doing this about 15 years, I worked for the Perkins Journal as the staff writer who covered Stillwater for a supplement that they did called the Stillwater Journal. And then I've been with the news press for, I did that at the Perkins Journal for about 8.5 years. And I've been at the news press for, I think it's going to be 7 years in February.
Wow, congrats.
I know, right? And it's gone by pretty quickly. It feels like it's gone by fast.
Yeah.
But anyway, I see so many people, I see so many things, and I get to talk to people, and there's so much I have to leave, as it were, on the cutting room floor. There's a lot of great stories out there, and I would love to be able to dive into those a little bit more in depth and to tell some stories that maybe aren't necessarily going to make it in the newspaper or wouldn't make it in the newspaper. Plus, this is it's a new adventure, right?
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really interested in, and I think the last couple of years, but especially the last year, has just driven it home of we're so inundated with national level news and all the, I can know more about what's going on in New York City than I can about my own community just by the the volume of media that's available. And so I thought, it was like, where are the conversations happening here in Stillwater?
Right.
And if I could have a goal where, some people decide to tune out, take away a little bit of their national news time and focus more locally, because then when we get to know each other better,
Right.
we can build those connections, those relationships, so we can actually get stuff done.
Well, and one of the things I've noticed over the years is that people tend to be, when things are going well, or there's not something that they're terribly concerned about personally, they get a little disengaged with their local government, sometimes even state government. And then when something happens that they don't like, a lot of times what they do is they jump in at the end of the process.
Exactly.
When it's too late to really change anything. The train's already rolling. The decisions have largely been made, and the final passage is imminent, right? And you've got these people then who are saying, you sprang this on me. I didn't know anything about it. Well, sometimes these have been discussed for years in advance, but people didn't know it. They didn't realize it because they were tuned out. And, that can be seen by the general public as an indictment of them. It's not always necessarily meant that way.
Yeah.
It's just a challenge because people are busy. They have lives to lead. They have things to do, and they don't have time necessarily to sit there and watch a 3.5-hour school board meeting.
Yeah.
Or, something like that. All these institutions are trying to figure out better ways to connect with people, to communicate with people.
Yeah.
So I guess something that I'm hoping that we can do is be a little bit of a conduit for that. Pull some of these issues out and do them in a way that shows people how they're relevant to their lives, because that's something I really strive for when I'm working for the newspaper. It's not just, here's an issue, this is what happened, this is how they vote. It's really trying to provide some context. This is where it came from, this is the history of it, or at least why they think it's important. And then if I can, I try to include a little bit of, this is why it's important to your life and why you should pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And that can be challenging sometimes, but hopefully we'll be able to do a little bit of that and have some conversations with the people who are actually making the decisions or involved in the process. Or, not even the people who are making the decisions. Maybe sometimes we talk to the people who have the questions or the concerns.
Yeah. One of the things that has stuck out to me since Quint Studer came to town, now it's been a year.
Right. He does consulting on revitalizing and redeveloping communities, right?
Yep. So many times people in our community feel like things happen to them rather than happen with them.
Yes.
And I think a need for a podcast to maybe talk about these things is you can get spoon-fed everything you want on the president, on national politics. It's an unending, you can just hit play and you will get as much dopamine hits from that as you want. But if you want to pay attention to local stuff, it's really hard.
It is. You have to dig. You have to look. You have to dig through websites and follow links and read through boring documents written in legalese that may not even make any sense to you.
Yeah, no, going through, and the first time I was like, man, I'm now regularly going to the city's website, finding the agenda, and then clicking through all those things. And maybe that could be easier, but I think we can kind of be a conduit to some of that.
I think humanizing some of it.
I would love for this to be much more of a two-way conversation between us and the audience. So we've got a platform that will allow you to send in audio commentary and questions, kind of like a call into a radio station thing, but not live. And we really, kind of need that feedback, because the direction we go is we're trying to craft a product for Stillwater.
Right.
That's made in Stillwater by people in Stillwater.
That is the essence of local.
Michelle and Chris don't know exactly what that product needs to be.
Right.
But I'm hoping there'll be enough people that will want to, give some feedback, or maybe, there's some possibilities. I think a Studio Stillwater can be a hub of many different types of podcasts and media and stuff like that can start here, whether it's focused on Stillwater, or maybe, there's a fun millennial married couple that they're just hilarious and they want to put on a show, and they might, reach out beyond Stillwater.
Sure. Chris, and that's really one of the things I'm most excited about, because I can see Studio Stillwater being sort of an umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And, for different people to communicate their visions or to be really creative. And I would love to see a variety of content creators, whether they're doing vlogs, whether they're doing video, whether they're doing, podcasts. And it could be a comedy
TikToks.
thing. It could
Get
be
your dance on.
I don't know. It could be whatever. I mean, I think that there's a lot of possibility there. And I would love for us to grow into being that hub where people can come to find that local content, those local perspectives, and obviously,
even contribute to that. I know
exactly.
I've got some kids that are like, the kids are especially, elementary they're so much more into, like, they know what a podcast is now.
Oh yeah.
Even though they probably never maybe particularly listened to one,
right.
But they know what it is. And I would love to see a kid-focused one.
Oh, that would be so cool.
That, maybe the adults are in the room and they're talking about, I don't know, what they love about their community or what they wish they had here or something. I mean,
for every kid that you've ever heard say, there's nothing to do here, the town I live in is so lame. Okay, so maybe we talk to those kids. What do you want to see? What would make it more awesome?
Yep. So I think there's a lot of potential. This could go a lot of different ways.
Sure. I'm flexible.
Yeah. And we're not trying to, chisel something in stone here.
No. But I do want to hear from people. I mean, that's my big thing. I want to do the two-way conversation. I want to hear what people are concerned about, what they want to know about, what makes them laugh, what makes them happy, what makes them sad. Do you have a great story?
Yeah.
Or do you know someone who has an amazing story that we need to tell? Because there are a lot of people out there who are really fascinating people and nobody knows it.
I wish there was, I don't know, another idea is like a Stillwater history. There's so many famous people and stuff that have come and gone through Stillwater, from your obvious ones like Garth Brooks to what's his name? Dick Tracy.
Oh, Chester Gould. He was the author
here.
of the Chester Gould.
Yeah.
And he grew up in Pawnee.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole mural over in Pawnee.
And there's just all kinds of fascinating little facts and tidbits there that I think we should get to reconnect with. And am I the person to do that podcast to talk about that things? No, but maybe you are. Maybe somebody out there is like, oh man, I could just sit there and talk about this stuff all the time, So I think the goal is we've created this space now, so you can't see because this is a podcast, but we are located in the former KSPI studios.
Yes.
Right here in the News Press building.
Yes. Big thanks to the Stillwater News Press, my employer and my day job, for basically providing us, I guess, with a sponsorship in the form of space. We're using the part of the old studio for KSPI radio, which was originally owned by the Belatti family, in addition to the News Press, back when you could own multiple media outlets in the same market. And then for a while you couldn't, and now I think you can again.
Interesting.
Yes, the FCC regulations have changed over the years.
Interesting.
But anyway, at one point there was a lot of crossover between the newspaper and the radio station. Lawrence Gibbs, who's sort of a legendary Stillwater newspaper man who has passed away a few years ago, loved going on car wrecks. And he used to do it for the radio station too, reporting live from a car accident on KSPI radio. Yeah, so there's a lot of history in this building, and I'm really excited and really thrilled that they've been willing to let us make our little home here.
Yep, we just kind of crashed on the place, and it's quiet, and it's what we got now.
There you go. All right, so that's what it is, folks. There we are.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you caught the vision that we have for Studio Stillwater. As you know, our local elections are not over yet. On April 9th, we will have a runoff between Christy Hawkins and Ariel Ross for City Council. For the Board of Education seats, we will see Marshall Baker and Steve Halgren compete for Ward 5, while Camille DeYoung and Carly Santelli contend for Ward 1. Stay tuned for our next episode where Michelle and I sit down with former Stillwater Mayor John Bartley. We discuss what it's like to be an elected public servant, and what he thinks of this year's elections. Also, thanks again to the Stillwater News Press for letting us use this studio space. Be sure to subscribe to the newspaper and support our local journalists. Our mission at Studio Stillwater is to elevate local voices to tell local stories. You can get in touch with us via email, studiostillwaterok@gmail.com, or, for the socialites, slide into our DMs on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You can also send us a voice message by going to anchor.fm/Studio Stillwater. Just hit the add message button to record right from your phone or computer. Finally, check out the show notes. There you will find links to everything we discussed on the show. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time.